Now, other than incomings, the biggest news around Arsenal is who they are going to sell, and with a lot of players rumoured to be leaving the club in the next few weeks, no one is bigger than Emile Smith Rowe, who has potentially agreed a deal to join Fulham and will be on his way within the next coming days. With this obviously being quite a delicate transfer, in this video we're going to go through why ultimately this is the correct decision and it is the best time for the club and the player. So let's get into it. Now straight away, obviously it's going to be a very delicate subject talking about Emile Smith Rowe. I spoke about him a few months ago and said that maybe his time is up, and a lot of people didn't agree with it, but I think this sale of this player for around £35 million, which is the rumoured transfer to Fulham, is actually a deal that makes sense for him and makes sense for the club. Now not only off the bat is £35 million our joint most expensive sale of all time, with of course Woklzbusiness, who went for about that sort of fee with a few add-ons a little bit more, and it also represents complete profit in FFP because he came from the academy, which is obviously very good, helping us stay in the financial rules. And very much like the Woklzbusiness sale when it happened, a lot of people were very upset because it's a player that had come through the academy, or at least at a very young age, and had proven a lot within the team. And obviously that 21-22 season where he ultimately may have actually saved Arteta's job. He scored 10 league goals in and was really good for Arsenal, proving a very good player in multiple positions. Now we were not at the best team and he was there for us when we weren't as good, and he was alongside Saka the whole time, being brilliant individually, great them two, and both of them playing for the England national team, which obviously Smith Rowe ended up scoring for, which is a brilliant achievement. But we have to look in present day when talking about these players, and to be quite frank, Smith Rowe has not had any real involvement around the team in the last few years, and I think all of that definitely starts down to his injury problems. Now these aren't a new thing, he's always struggled with injuries. He struggled on injuries out on loan when he went to Leipzig and barely got any game time, and it's not necessarily been a thing that he's been comfortable with throughout his career. Now he had some stability in the 21-22 season where he managed to play a lot and score a lot of goals, and it seemed like there was a progress level there where he could get better and build on from that platform. Another issue is the fact that when he was injured, his spot kind of got replaced. Now in that season he was really good at, he actually played a lot on the left midfield position, but Arsenal obviously changed it up with the years to come, and people like Martinelli came into the side having brilliant seasons and becoming more of a starter. That coupled with the fact his attacking midfield role had gone as Odegaard had kind of taken it over, and as new as last season we didn't even really play in a concrete attacking midfielder the whole time. Odegaard of course was the very much an attacking player in the midfield, but he also played as an 8 and was a lot deeper at times, a role that I'm not sure Smith Rowe wants to do, or maybe not to the same level as Odegaard has. Now I don't think it's all Smith Rowe's fault, because I think obviously the injuries you can say is not his fault, but I do think a lot of things have definitely gone against him. Odegaard being the captain and being a real leader for the side, despite maybe not even playing well sometimes, has kind of put him even more out of the team. It's basically a spot where he is cemented and not even Vieira can get a role there. And in a 4-3-3 midfield, you don't really want to put him next to Odegaard because it doesn't really have stability between them two, and even though last season it looked okay in certain games, I think in the Luton game it looked good, against most teams in the league who are very good, it doesn't really work because of their play styles. Also only played 508 minutes in the Premier League in the last 2 seasons, and he has got 4 assists in that time, but he hasn't scored a goal. So to say he's really an involvement around the team or a player that we need to replace is definitely not really true. He isn't in the side and barely played last season, sitting at only 475 minutes in all competition. And these injury concerns have meant he hasn't been able to grow with the team like the rest of the team have. They've all grown together and got better to be one of the best teams in the country, and he hasn't really had that leeway. And when he was consistently playing in the side, Arsenal were in the Europa League getting through a couple of rounds, and now we're doing that in the Champions League and going quite far in the tournament, at least you'd hope, again, where he isn't really going to get that game time because every game matters so much. And I know Smith Rowe is going to mean a lot to very many of you watching this, and he means a lot to me, but to get £35 million nowadays for Arsenal especially, if with a player that has only played around 340 minutes in the Prem last season, is actually a good getaway for the money. Now I don't think Arsenal are a very good selling team, I think it's well documented, and that is a combination by not selling the right players at the right time, and also not really having the assets to sell players that are worth a lot anyway. Smith Rowe is one of them assets, and considering he isn't playing and the club want to give Vieira more of a chance, who admittedly is a very different player to Smith Rowe and Odegaard, so I can kind of understand that, I think it's the right decision to get this amount of money for Smith Rowe now, knowing another year with him on the bench would only detriment cement him and make him even one more year older, which he isn't getting younger, sitting at 24 in just a couple of days time. And not only would it meant that his transfer value would go down and his experience and sharpness will go down, his career for his sake would not be in a good position. Now I know we all want his injury concerns not to be as bad, but last season there was large periods where he was fit and he just sat on the bench. He wasn't injured all the way from February to the last game of the season and only came on in a select few and started one against Luton. He was on the bench and didn't come on in many of them, and he doesn't seem that he's that option that comes off the bench to change the game up when we need it. Obviously we did go on a brilliant run anyway, so you could also put that into it. I also think more importantly from a squad building perspective, this is actually very important for Arsenal to do. Not only recoup some good money through FFP that we don't ever seem to do, and I think eventually it was going to catch up with us if we weren't making good sales, but he's not the only one that should leave and is probably going to. We're going to see Reece Nelson probably going alone with maybe a mandatory option to buy from Leicester, and we expect maybe the same thing to happen, maybe an option with Nketiah to Marseille. Now these are all FFP players that are brilliant for that, and they're all players that probably didn't play enough last season for not only their own career but also for the team to actually be worth it. Arsenal need to level the floor that they have right now and get a lot of good squad players to come into the team. One for one body of players that are simply not playing or haven't been used, such as the Nelsons, the Smith Rowes, for younger and maybe more exciting players to come in, is something we should be doing from a team building perspective, because we need to be able to rely on players that can come in and out of the side. And the other players that we should rely on as well is the other youngsters coming through. We are now in a new era of Arsenal youngsters, and obviously we've got a lot of players in the under 21s, under 23s who are a lot and very highly rated. We've even seen them on the academy tour this year, and one in particular is Ethan Nwaneri. Now it's a player that a lot of people have spoken about. I've spoken about him before about how good he is going to be. He's obviously been given Premier League minutes already at the age of 15 and 16 by Arteta, and as an attacking midfielder he's not necessarily the same player as Smith Rowe, but he is a very exciting player and could potentially do as much as possible. He's a very great dribbler, he's very good at progressing with the ball, something like Smith Rowe's pretty good at, but he might also have a bit of a deadly side to him going forward. And considering he's so exciting at the age of 17, and in order to make these youngsters happy and want them to stay at the club, sometimes you're going to have to give them minutes, and I think right now we are prepared to inflate his position where we need, maybe we're winning games and we can bring him in later, instead of maybe someone like Smith Rowe who hasn't really done too much in the last few years and is a bit older. And ultimately there is just not enough minutes to go around throughout the whole team, especially when we're playing at the highest competition in every tournament. We need Nwaneri to get more game time to get even better, because we know how good he can be and how much the team are excited for him to be there. And players like Vieira still need to play. He barely got a look in either towards the end of the season, and he needs to be trusted a lot more. And with that amount of competition and potentially another centre midfielder coming in such as Marino or maybe Fabian Ruiz, the Smith Rowe game time simply isn't there, and he is a very sellable asset, so it completely makes sense. But that does not take away anything from Smith Rowe at Arsenal. Now he's a little bit older, he's a year older than Saka, and I remember when he came through he had a few loans. The Huddersfield one was really good, obviously Leipzig he was injured for, and I was really ever going to wonder if his injury record would be good enough to play for the Arsenal main team. And unfortunately Arsenal were very poor over COVID and after COVID for a while, but it made people like Saka and Smith Rowe really give us light within the team. I remember when they used to be the only exciting part about Arsenal Football Club, and that goal against Tottenham at the Emirates is something that I'll remember forever. When we won 3-1, he played brilliant in that game, and I remember that assist he got with Saka against Newcastle, absolutely brilliant play. Overall it is very sad because he's not only one of our own, he was a player that has gone through a lot in his career and still proved his worth. But I do think the player that he is now is amazing, and I think he'll really flourish. Hopefully he can stay fit, and hopefully Fulham will integrate him right, but I trust Marco Silva will. I think as a fan base we have to understand that it's best for him, and it is sad, and I think that is completely valid to feel sad about it, but ultimately I wish the best for Smith Rowe, and he's one of the players that has left Arsenal where all I hope is just good things from him. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think it's the right decision or not? And let me know your opinion on it. Please like and subscribe for any more videos, and I'll see you in the next one.